Hello, good morning. Try again. Hello, good morning. It's coming up to midday on Saturday, January the 23rd, and I'm out for my daily exercise. And today I'm going to stay in the BA2 region. On my last video, I rode around a lot of the BA1 isolated villages on the outskirts of north and east of Bath. Today I'm going to do the 180-degree opposite. I'm going to stick within the BA2 boundary but visit some of the isolated villages south and west of Bath. I live in BA23 and I've just passed along through the two tunnels just before Midford station through BA24 underneath BA25 because that's Combe Down, and I went through Combe Down tunnel. I think passing underneath BA25 classes is going through it. I'm just about to pass through Midford, which is BA27, then the bulk of the ride is going to be BA28 and BA29, then back through Twerton through BA21. Quite a nice little circuit, in fact, some really nice places there, some spectacular views, and I'll share some of those with you, and I'll also talk about some of my thoughts about my plans for the coming year. Clearly things are very uncertain at the moment, but I've got a few ideas, and more importantly probably several options to keep as many irons in the fire as possible. I left it quite late today because there's been quite a severe frost overnight, and a lot of the roads I'm going to be on would have been icy before midday, so I've given it a chance to thaw. In fact, the mist, there was a really thick mist and it's only just lifted. Now there's really nice blue skies. I've just come along the two tunnels, which is that path there with some cyclists, taking this minor road now up past the very distinctive Midford Castle. Going to cross quite a busy B road, the Bath to Norton St Philip road, then I'm going to head down through Combe Hay. Almost immediately after that last stop, I've passed over the busy Bath to Norton St Philip road at Midford, and I've just dropped down this really steep hill towards Combe Hay, but that footpath there by the stile right on this sharp bend is a place of interest. In a recent camping video when I camped in the Wellow Valley, I'll put a link to it up in the top right hand corner now. I mentioned then that the Wellow Brook joins the Cam Brook at Midford, and then they form Midford Brook, which then flows a few miles into the River Avon. Those two streams fed two separate coal canals, and those two joined at Midford as well, and where that stile is there, that's a footpath down to Midford Viaduct. There's a part of the old canal which is a listed monument which has been restored, so that's always worth locking the bike up and walking across the fields. It's only 100 or so yards. This is looking back just a few hundred yards on. You can see how lovely it is round here. Steeply hilled valley. And then I'm going to be taking this track up here along to the village of Combe Hay. There's still some ice on these untreated lanes, so I'll be taking it very cautiously along here. That's one of the reasons I left it so long to set out this morning. According to the BBC Points West weather forecaster Ian Ferguson, we're expecting some potential snowfalls overnight in our area. Whether Bath will get it, I'm not sure, but I'm sure the high ground of the Mendips and Exmoor, I think there's some forecasts suggesting there might be between 3 and 5 centimetres of snow overnight. So another reason why I've chosen today and not yesterday or tomorrow to come out. Just leaving the lovely village of Combe Hay now. Geographically, I'm still roughly following the River Cam in the Cam Valley. That's the road up to Bath. That's the road down to Wellow, and I'm taking this road up here. But very shortly I'll be taking a left and heading that way through the actual village of Dunkerton, right in the heart of the Cam Valley. That brick wall there where my bike is is the wall of an old railway tunnel. In fact, it was originally used for the Somerset Coal Canal. I referred to that earlier on, the aqueduct back at Midford. When the canal went out of business, the GWR bought up the track bed and used a lot of its the line of the canal to actually put the railway down on top of, including this structure here. They just converted a canal tunnel into a railway tunnel, and it goes underneath this crossroads here. Turn left shortly after Combe Hay crossroads as the road carried on up towards the Bath to Radstock road, where it joins it near top of Dunkerton Hill. This is going to join, or cross it rather, at the bottom of Dunkerton Hill. There's the road up to the old Dunkerton railway station. There's a few houses on the main road at the bottom of Dunkerton Hill, but the bulk of the village and the community is about another, best part of a mile further on. So you can see why a lot of these stations had the reputation of being miles away from the people, the communities they served. I'm going to carry on down here, cross the busy Bath to Radstock road at the foot of Dunkerton Hill, just do a few 50 or so yards on it, and then turn left into the village of Dunkerton. There's a couple of places of interest there I'd like to share with you. And there's some of the buildings up near where I did the last bit of filming by the old station. Then I crossed the main road, came along here. Point of interest here, in fact, is the Grange. It's a Grade 2 listed building in there, and there's some quite good shots from the roadside. I'll do that just along there. The point of interest here is this is where Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes and other characters and fictional works, used to come and have spiritualist meetings in the 1920s. He had this lifelong fascination with the supernatural, the occult and spiritualism. Just a short ride along from the entrance to the Grange. That's the road leading up to it. And this is quite a good view of it from the road into the village of Dunkerton. The views up there must be fantastic because you've got the Cam Brook running right alongside, and then they would have a raised view of the valley on the other side. I'm just going to head a few yards along to that 20-mile-an-hour sign, turn left there, cross over the Cam Brook, and then stop and talk at the church there. Lovely location. Just a few yards from that road and the brook, you come to Dunkerton Church. This is All Saints Church, Dunkerton. And like many of the other churches around here, it's also a site of some Commonwealth war graves. This may be a good opportunity to talk about some of my plans for the coming year. So clearly events are very uncertain at the moment. I've no idea when lockdown's going to finish, and I'm not going to speculate. There's plenty of people out there doing that. First off, my 1300 kilometre DIY Wodyditch, which went from Bath north to Bridgenorth, back to Bath, then east to Aylesbury, back to Bath, then down to Portland Bill, back to Bath, then west over to Mumbles Bay, finishing back at Bath. It was a star shape, in effect, using my home as a central control point. I called that Never Eat Shredded Wheat because of the north, east, south, west connection. I was hoping to ride that last June, well, because of global events and the pandemic and the lockdown, that just never happened. What I did find though, however, was after quite a long layoff during March and April, I was able to quickly build my endurance back up, and I completed a unofficial Super Randonneur series during the summer of a 200, 300, 400 and 600 kilometre series of rides. The Wodyditch system was closed down at the time, so I just rode them as pointless DIY Wodyditches, and I really enjoyed that. In fact, I'm not that bothered whether it was recognised or not. I just had a thoroughly good time doing it, and I think that's what I'm going to aim for this year, if possible. Who knows, events may not allow me to, but I've invested quite a lot of time and effort into designing that route for the Never Eat Shredded Wheat 1300 kilometre. I'm going to try and ride parts of that route, if possible, if the tiering system allows me to do that after lockdown. I'm going to try and ride parts of that as a possible Super Randonneur series, or a pointless Super Randonneur series. So in other words, maybe do a 300, a 400 and a 600. That's one option. whether it's possible or not, I simply don't know at this stage. The other thing lockdown has taught me really is there's so much potential around Bath. I've always believed that, I've always known that, I've always loved the area, but just by exploring some roads which I've always wondered, oh, I wonder where that goes. I've been doing that recently, and to some extent I'm doing that today, and I've spotted some cracking looking potential campsites, so I'm going to try and do some wild camping around Bath. May even just get the train a couple of stops along the Canal and walk back and camp or bivvy overnight, that sort of thing. And the other thing is, with the churches, you probably gathered I really enjoy country churches, the architecture and the setting. I'm not a particularly religious person. I've actually used church porches to bivvy on long Audax rides before. A couple of years ago I became aware of the Churches Conservation Trust, which is a charitable trust to protect and hopefully restore churches which are no longer used but have got listed status. And one of their fundraising efforts is they allow people to camp in them. They call it champing. I'll put a link in the description right below and tell you a little bit more about it. I looked into that, and the price range really for a solo person like myself doing it was really not in the bracket that I really wanted to go up to. I guess if there's a group of you doing it, it's actually quite cost effective. But now with the lockdown of YHA and the restrictions just before the lockdown, they were basically saying you would have to rent a whole room, a whole dormitory in a youth hostel for between £40 and £60. And even then you wouldn't be allowed access to communal areas like the members' kitchen or the lounge or even the drying room. That changes the picture slightly. That makes staying in the church by myself certainly quite feasible, and I've decided I really want to do it. Whether it happens this coming year or not, I don't know. Whether I'm even able to, I simply don't know, but that's another iron in the fire. So my approach to uncertainty has always been a little bit comparing it to a weather forecast. I have absolutely no control over the weather whatsoever. What I can do is prepare for it and adapt to it. I mean, an example would be you would have a wardrobe and try and plan the clothing for whatever season it is. Of course it's going to go wrong sometimes. You're going to get drenched and frozen sometimes in the summer, or you may be overdressed and overheat in the winter, but you get the sort of picture. I've got no control over the weather whatsoever, just like global events, but I can adapt to it with a little bit of planning and foresight. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. So that's how I sort of tend personally to deal with uncertainty. Back on the River Cam, time to press on. I could go up that road there, that leads up towards the Bath to Timtree Road. And in fact I am going to cross that, but I'm going to go along a little bit further and do a very sharp right hand turn. It's the V on the map of this route. And the reason I want to do that, for one thing, that's a backbreaker and a killer. That one's a little bit less severe, but it also goes past my next village of interest. I'll see you there. This is the road from Dunkerton, and this junction here, if I was to go left I would get to Carlingcott, but I'm actually going to double back on myself up there through what I call the lost village of Withyditch. There's a lovely Baptist chapel up there and some great views. Geographically then, that's the Cam Valley there. I'm going to climb out of it now. This is approaching the boundary of Withyditch. It's looking back towards Dunkerton, the very distinctive Dunkerton hill. Coming into the, what I call the lost village of Withyditch. There's Withyditch Chapel right in front of us, that grand tall building. I'll tell you why I always refer to this as the lost village of Withyditch when I get there. Withyditch Chapel. It's so easy to zoom down these roads and think there's not much here apart from that and the building next to it. And then you come to this if you stop and look around a little bit. Tells you exactly what's here, and it really does feel like a lost hidden village up there. I often ride this circuit in the pitch black in November, December, January, about 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. And the reason I do that is it's a fantastic way to just practice your night navigation skills with the Garmin. Sometimes I'll design a route and I'll deliberately go off it just to test how I get back on it in the pitch black. Even though I know these lanes like the back of my hand during the day, after dark it just feels like you're in the middle of nowhere. It's really quite confusing. So it's a good way to sort of hone your navigation skills. Right opposite the Baptist church there's this stile, Kissing Gate, and a path right down to the river. Just talking to a chap out for a walk down the bottom, he's local, and he was sort of saying the river flooded, bursted its banks recently, and he's lived around here 70 years and he's known the water right up over into the fields before. Not often, but occasionally. From the chapel then, going to carry on up this road. Eventually it would join the Bath to Timsbury road. In fact, if I'd taken that turning right opposite the church in Dunkerton, it would have met it at the same point. But before I get there, I'm going to take a left-hand turn and cross the road in a slightly different location, go right across the road towards Priston. But before I get there, I'm going to do a little circuit down through Nailwell and Ingles. I've just climbed up from Withyditch, which is down there, heading up towards the main road that way, and I've taken this left-hand turn here. I'm going to head right across this crossroads here. It's signposted to Priston, and I will be going over the summit and then dropping down into Priston, but before I do that I'm going to go off and do this circuit along to the right, which will take me through Nailwell, a loop of Ingles and then back before I join this road again, drop down into Priston itself. This is the road I've turned off left onto to do my deviation, so I'm going to go behind me this way through Nailwell, then do a circuit around Ingles, rejoin this road back that way, and then join the road I would have been on a bit further down there. So in other words, I'm cutting this big corner off. Look how nice it is along here. That big hill over there, that would be the A39 over there, heading down towards Wells. Just about to pass through the small hamlet of Nailwell. Just several houses, that's all there is here. And about a mile further along the left-hand circuit around to Ingles, and then I'll be coming back this way, heading towards Priston, which is down in the distance there. I've just come through Nailwell. I'm now about to head down towards Ingles, down this circuit. Do a big loop round. So this is the small hamlet of Ingles. A few more houses down here than Nailwell. There's also some farms and some tracks going off down over the hill. In fact, I think you can get across to Newton St Low from here on tracks, maybe not tarmacked roads. This is a 360. Lovely little place. To the best of my knowledge, there's no bus route here, so I imagine this gets cut off quite easily, and tomorrow may be a case in point because there's some heavy snow forecast for the region. Whether we get it as far as Bath, I'm not sure. Sure, the Mendips and maybe Exmoor, the high ground, to get it, but it's quite high here actually, so there's a chance that this place could well get cut off tomorrow by snow. I've completed the circuit of Ingles, joined this road back through Nailwell. In fact, this is quite a good view of the valley. That's looking back across at Ingles. By coincidence, I bumped into one of my neighbours, Alan, he lives in the next street to me. He's also a postman as well, so we used to work together years ago. I just asked him, is there a bus service there? And he said no. I said, so they're likely to get cut off here then in bad weather, potentially tomorrow. And he said his rule of thumb is there's another postie there who lives in that village. If he gets into work, then it's doable. If not, then probably it's isolated. I thought that was really handy and a pretty good rule of thumb as well. In fact, that's Priston in the distance. Lovely little village. It's a steep drop down into that. At the foot of the hill, just coming into the village of Priston. There's a really nice mill the other side of the village. It's privately owned now, and they quite often use it for functions like weddings. Right behind me, there's one of these many little brooks flowing down from the fields. And there's a few little streams that cut through this landscape. Two of them are the Conan Brook, I think that's how you pronounce it, and the Newton Brook. They both flow into the River Avon near the old Sparrows crane works on the A36 leaving Bath. I'll put a map on the screen now. Pass through the village, it's very nice. There's a pub there of an evening. It's lovely coming out here and just having a pint at the pub. Then there's a bit of a pull up towards Marksbury. The mill would be off to the right, but we won't go that way today. Off towards Marksbury. Before you get there, this very sharp right hand V back to another of Bath's hidden villages, Wilmington, over that way. I've just come up from Priston, which was that way. There's quite a few roads around here, quite a few junctions, so you get lots of options to go to different places. That'd be Farnborough over this way. I'm heading, as I said, up towards Marksbury. Down there is Priston Mill. I seem to remember back when I was in my 20s, used to be able to buy bread made from Priston Mill flour, so I think it's functional not that long ago. Nowadays it's used for functions, weddings in particular. In fact, I've been to a couple of friends' weddings down there. I've even been down there of an evening for the staff do of a catering company that used to organise the food and hospitality for weddings down there. I used to go out with the girl that worked for them, and that's the one and only time I've ever played roulette down there. I think they gave us £5 worth of free chips, and then you could buy more if you wanted to, but I soon got through mine and just walked away. About another quarter of a mile or so, just as this road levels out, and then there'll be a sharp right hand turn going up the other side of that hill there. The weather, look, lovely blue sky. That's the direction I've just come from Priston. The hill's levelled out, then I'm going to do another one of these very sharp V's towards Wilmington. You may see the road goes up over around that hill where the trees are. Just climbed to the summit of the hill. I'm heading along here with these fantastic views, looking across towards the A39. As I drop down from Wilmington, you look down on your left to what used to be Newton Park Art College. It's now part of Bath University College. I hope you've enjoyed this little alternative tour of the outskirts of Bath. I really do believe the tourists that come, who, yes, they want to see the Roman baths and the Royal Crescent, who wouldn't? I love both of them, but I just always think the surrounding countryside of Bath is the real jewel in the crown. So many people zoom by on their way to Stratford or Oxford and just miss this completely. I'm going to finish the video here. Wish everybody well. Stay safe, everybody. Look out for each other, and I'll see you soon. Meantime, back through Twerton. Bye for now.